hunts in 124 got added that way.
Okay.
After the fact.
Yeah.
And they've gotten progressively worse and worse. It used to be that you would how long's it been? 9 years ago, I guess, 10 years ago. It used to be that they would get their proclamation out like prior to the deadline. And it's gotten to the point now where you just have to apply and then look at it and then hope to, and you couldn't amend your application back in the day.
Right.
And now they've changed that so you can amend it because now they do not get their actual numbers and proclamation out prior to the deadline for non-residents. So
Why don't we just push some deadlines back?
So,
that's what I think. Why don't you just push that deadline back?
so Arizona called me, their director called me a couple of weeks ago. Their commission wanted to move their elk and pronghorn deadline to June. I don't know if you guys talked to them. I'm like, well, if you do, you're going to lose a competitive advantage. That's why Wyoming kept the even though they moved deer and pronghorn to May, they said, no, we're keeping January 31st.
Yep.
Because we want to grab those non-resident dollars.
Mm-hmm. And it is historically, like if you look through our list of most viewed application strategies, Wyoming elk is always one of the very highest, if it's not the highest.
It is the highest.
And I think it's just because it's the first out of the gate.
Yeah.
Everybody's excited about it. They're looking at Wyoming elk, and I mean Wyoming elk, obviously.
And Wyoming has the opportunity to be excited about.
And
you know what I mean? Like you actually have a chance.
Yeah, I mean they're over objective statewide.
You think about
much.
the other part of it when we're talking people who have limited budgets. You got to front all the money to Wyoming. Yeah. So that's money you don't have to front to New Mexico or to Montana or whoever. So. I hate
that. That's so hard. It's hard to front $1,200 if you apply in the special tag, $1,283, and then if you got a kid like me or two of them, you're fronting the cost. Or three, three of them. I got two that can hunt. And I guess 3 coming up, but you start fronting all that money, and you're fronting it until May.
Yeah, and now this year you get to front $2,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, with the increase.
Yeah,
and transaction fees and everything.
Well, if you can't tell, we have a special guest today. Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, we're live.
What? I was telling all this stuff on.
We can cut.
You better.
We can cut if we need to.
Yeah, all right. You guys do what you want with it. But anyhow, if people wonder how one of our crew ended up with that Wyoming elk tag,
that's how.
I watch everyone. If I'm available and have service, I watch online every meeting that is setting the final quotas.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are like, look, I got a job, Randy.
You can listen to those while you're driving.
Yeah.
You can just let them play on the YouTube because they record all of them. Utah does the same thing with all their different wildlife board meetings. You can listen to those.
Yeah. So.
And I think it's a good idea just to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
Just the discussion and the general vibe of what our state's trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do have a special guest today. We got Randy Newberg.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Uncle Randy.
Yeah. First time on a podcast, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember last time I did a podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
just before I left for Arizona, I guess.
Yeah. And we wanted to have you on because today is a special day for us. This is our 100th episode.
Whoa. Yep. Number 100?
Number 100.
Yeah.
Man, I better give the program. You guys are going to catch me pretty soon.
Yeah, we've been pretty consistent.
It's amazing, like when you just get to work and just do it. You know what I mean? Then you lift your head up one day and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, 100.
Right, 100.
We're here.
Hard to believe.
Time's flown by.
So what do you guys got to be doing something special for 100, right? I mean, you can't let the 100 episode come and go without.
Yeah, we are. We're going to do a little giveaway. We're going to give 10 $100 gift cards to the Go Hunt Gear Shop. All you got to do is we're going to put out a reel. So this will be part of a reel. You see it on Instagram. So all you got to do is give us a like. You got to comment and you got to tag a friend. And you got to subscribe to Go Hunt on the IG. So
on the gram.
Yeah, do it for the gram.
Yeah, for the gram.
Do you guys have a course of how to run Instagram? Because
Brady's the king of
we got a 22-year-old or whatever he is. How old is he?
So I have a phone here,
and
they put it on my phone. I think, it's that one right there.
Yeah.
And I hit it, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Brady laughs at me because I don't even have it on my phone.
Really?
So how I get to it is through I Google search Go Hunt Instagram and then I click on it.
Look at this guy. He literally Google searches.
I don't know
Instagram.
What you know on social.
You don't have it downloaded to your phone?
I don't know that.
He doesn't know where it's
how
at in his phone.
I
in
the
got
App
it.
Store.
He does have it, but he doesn't know where it's at in his phone.
Yeah.
So then I just Google search.
And you could just search your iPhone and then get it out there.
That's
too.
what I do.
Yeah.
I spend more time trying to learn Russian as a second language than I do posting on Instagram. But I have a crew that
probably
does
a good
it.
strategy.
So you're saying you secretly have a TikTok then?
I TikTok.
Do you have a TikTok? Does Randy have a TikTok?
Does Randy have a TikTok?
I don't even know what TikTok is
Good.
other than I hear
That's the
people.
best answer
I
I've
hear
ever
people
heard
talk
someone say.
about it, but
Oh, you imagine Randy doing the dances out in elk camp or something
Yeah.
on TikTok?
The old TikTok.
there is a clip of me doing the gritty.
There is.
Yeah.
Where were you when this happened?
My uncle Larry last year in Arizona had shot a bull.
Yeah.
And the camera guy is all set up and he's interviewing Larry, and I come across the back doing the gritty. And,
Did you get it going
that's
with
awesome.
the eye?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I did the whole
Yeah,
thing.
you got to. Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll make
Oh,
the
that's
cut. I don't
awesome.
know if it'll make the cut, though.
That
That's
better
about
make
as
the
far as I get with anything like real trendy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty trendy. That's
That
a
is
good
very
one.
trendy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you kind of do that because Justin Jefferson.
He made it famous.
Yeah.
That is the guy.
So, but
There you go.
And,
So,
they barely won yesterday.
I was at that game.
You were?
Randy and I were both at that.
It was the most boring football game.
Ever.
You would have to script a game to be any more boring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could script a game
Did
anymore.
either team get in the red zone?
So I know the Raiders, on the Raiders side, the Vegas side, we crossed the 30 one time, and that's when Renfro fumbled.
Yeah.
But that was the only time we ever crossed that. We were never even in field goal range of the entire
The
game.
beauty of having a seat right at the 40-yard line is that's where all the play was. There was
Yeah,
no
it
play
was-
down by
yeah.
it was all right
It
out
was
in
right
front
in
of
front
me
of you the
all
whole
day
time.
long.
Crazy.
boy, it was
so
boring.
what was the final score?
3-0.
An entire football game?
Yeah.
The 3 points were in
2-0.
the fourth quarter.
No
With
way.
2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter, it was 3-0.
Was it here at Allegiant?
Yes.
Yeah.
This
it
is why
was so
basketball
Who won?
is better.
the Vikings.
The Vikings.
And I feel
horrible.
bad for the Raiders. There were way more purple jerseys
Yeah.
there than there. And
Really?
when they would bang the drum for defense,
Yeah.
the Vikings would go skull, and the skull would be way louder than the
Way louder.
It was
It was a legitimate home game
for the
Vikings.
Vikings.
It was crazy.
Why is that? Is
Vikings
Vegas not-
travel. The Vikings have always known to travel well,
I
right?
thought the
there's a-
Raiders were like the ultimate traveling
there's
army.
So
No?
Steelers travel like it's kind of a known thing in the league.
Packers?
Packers travel.
They
I feel like the
travel
Packers
Dallas
travel
travel.
well.
Steelers
All the
travel
cheeseheads?
really well, and Vikings travel really well. Like they're known for that.
But I mean, look, if you're in Minnesota right now, it's 12 below zero,
Come out
and
to
you're
the
thinking
desert.
about ice fishing, or I can go to Vegas to a football game. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, it makes sense.
anyhow,
Yeah.
but I don't know how we got on that. I'm sorry, you guys got to reel me in.
No, we're good. Yeah,
I'll
we love
roll
it.
us out in the ditch.
Yeah.
all
Hey,
day
we
long.
get in trouble all the time that people say our intros are too long
Too,
because we
too
start-
long, yeah.
Oh,
We
this
go
is the
everywhere.
intro. We're
Yeah.
at 7.5 minutes
Oh,
already.
this is mild.
Yeah,
We're
usually
usually
we hit
15,
about
20 minutes
25.
deep.
Really?
Usually there's at least like 4 or 5 comments that are like, if you guys want to get to the heart of the discussion, you got to scroll
Jump.
to
You gotta
25
jump.
minutes or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
But like this one, though, we did have a nugget drop right away. Like Randy didn't realize we were hot. He was dropping
Mics
he
were
was
hot.
dropping the goods.
Yeah.
I can't believe if I would have known we were hot, I would have not said that.
We're here for the people, Randy. That's what we
They
always
always,
say.
they always make fun of me for not giving intel. So I guess Randy's going
But
to
then Trail and I'll just jump in and
Yeah.
drop it.
It's bound to
That's
happen.
what we do.
Okay.
You
like
guys
a-
with the promo code quick, Trail.
Yeah, promo code. So use the promo code podcast. Sign up for a Go Hunt Insider research account. We're going to give you 50 points to the Go Hunt Gear Shop. You can use that towards the purchase of any gear you want in the shop. If you want to sign up for Go Hunt Maps, we're going to give you 20 points. So use that promo code podcast, and that just equals dollars back in the shop. And it's research season. So, I mean, we're already, sounds like you're already in it.
I'm deep into it. Just like you guys are, right?
Yeah.
If you don't research, you're not going to get tags.
In my old life, I had tax season, fishing season, and hunting season. Now my life is application season, research season, hunting season.
That's a much better setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it was a lot better.
Yeah, it took me 35 years of grinding away at a CPA firm to get to that point, but
and
yeah.
fishing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
hunting's much better.
We appreciate you coming by. We assume that you were in town for Cowboy Christmas.
yeah, Hunter
he-
and Outdoor Christmas. The Elk Foundation has their big thing here along with the NFR, and
Gotcha.
yeah, I was over there.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. It sounds like you've talked to a few,
I
a few
have
folks
talked
this
to
week.
a lot of people, shaking hands, kissing babies, as they call it. It's fun, and my wife being from Vegas.
Oh, your wife's from Vegas?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. I always say I married a Vegas gal, and she looks at me like, because it when you say a Vegas gal,
Oh,
it has
yeah.
a different connotation than a woman from Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But she graduated from Valley High School here, and I could find Valley High School in the dark. because there's a coffee shop over there. And I don't care where we're at in this valley. We're going to that coffee shop. And she's going to say, this is where I went to high school. I know, honey. This is the 48th time. This is the 48th time I could walk here in the dark.
Welcome to marriage. That is marriage right there.
How'd you meet a Vegas girl?
I was going to college in Reno.
Okay. You went to University of Nevada?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah, Nevada, Reno.
Nevada, Reno?
Yeah, when I went there, they called it Harvard on the Truckee. and here's the bad part. About 3 or 4 years after I graduated, there's some scandal there where some professor or some administrator was selling diplomas. I'm like, I could just bought one.
I should have went to college there.
Yeah.
And then I just would have hunted even more.
So,
that would have been great.
Yeah.
What's your degree in? I assume something to do with
Accounting.
Accounting?
Yeah, I started at the University of Minnesota with mechanical engineering. And then it was a really cold winter in 1983, 84. I said, I'm getting the hell out of here. I grew up here. I have shoveled more snow. I've dealt with more cold. Arizona State, here I come. Mm-hmm. And so I went there and I enrolled for a year and a half, but I didn't attend much. But I will say this, nobody shot more quail and doves at Arizona State than I did when I was there. So when I went to enroll again for my fourth spring, well, it would have been a spring semester, the fourth semester, they pulled me aside and said, Mr. Newberg, it appears we're more concerned about your higher education than you are. You're not allowed here anymore. So I went from the dean's list in mechanical engineering to academic probation, all in the course of about 2 years.
Yeah. And that's what hunting will do to a person.
It will.
That's literally what it'll do.
I stomped every corner of Arizona. It was ridiculous. I mean, I had coos deer tags. You could buy them left over because I worked there and I got residency after the first year.
Yeah.
I bought a coos deer tag in a unit now that is like
primo.
Yeah. And I didn't even go hunt it because I'm like, well, you can get these every year. And I don't have enough money to put gas in my roommate's truck to get up there this weekend.
Yeah.
And, but quail and dove were just free pretty much, you know.
Yeah.
It's, I could write a book, 101 Ways to Cook Dove.
What's your favorite?
That's awesome.
That's one of the questions I had, but I'm curious.
Like, really? The best way that we cook dove, and this is like every college kid can relate to this. You get the hamburger helper stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you
that
put
make
some hamburger helper.
Yeah, you just put like a quick sear to the dove, and then you put it in there, and it was like 49 cents for a box of that hamburger helper mix. And so we just walked down the aisle and put the cart there, fill the whole cart.
Yeah, I think it's still only about $1 hamburger helper.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a college
every now and then when
diet.
I'm home alone and I'm the dad, I'm playing parent that night and making dinner. Hamburger helper makes the list, the short list. Yeah. For
so, you know, if people would have seen me as a college sophomore and, you know, trying to be a college sophomore, and Vegas would have let you bet on whether or not I'd end up in some sort of detox facility or I'd end up as a responsible voting citizen. Most of the money would have went to the detox facility option.
Yeah.
You were a favorite there, huh?
Yeah, it was, but I'd never quail or dove hunted before.
It's fun.
And at that time, Phoenix had not overtaken everywhere. There were like cotton fields and orchards and stuff, and you'd go bang on the door. They're like, shoot every one of those. Well, the limit is, I think it's like 15 or 20 a day. Well, we can only shoot more. Shoot. Well, no, there's a limit. But so you could cut class or just not go to class. All these people are going to be like, wait a second. This guy's a complete degenerate. What kind of advice is he giving? But
my claim to fame is, so I went to Montana just like Brady. And that's when I got into waterfowl hunting. Obviously, there's no waterfowl in southern Nevada.
Yeah.
And I didn't do much of that growing up. I did quite a bit of quail and chucker and stuff and whatever we could do down here. But then you go up to the Pacific Flyway, longest of the flyway seasons, highest level of bag limits, all that stuff. But I never failed the class. That is my claim. Look, I didn't get good grades.
I was hoping we were all going to have the same story here because I'm a fifth-year senior of University of Montana because of hunting as well.
I wish.
It took me an extra year because I skipped a lot of classes.
Looking back, I wish I went to college for more than 4 years because that was just dumb. That's like leaving a party early. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be the first one to leave the party, and I was. But my claim to fame, I had the goal in my head of like, look, don't let this. You can't fail.
Yeah.
But as long as we don't do that, we can hunt. It's like in my internal head, and I never failed the class. That was my like proudest moment.
Wow, that's good.
That was good.
You have to attend to pass.
I didn't attend. I figured out the system where the days that I did go to school, I made sure that the professor saw me. I made sure to ask a question, and I made sure to go see them after class. So there was this.
Yeah.
They felt that like we had this little thing, you know. So then when finals would come up, and I'd be like, "Hey, you know, I'm struggling with this, that. Can you help me?" They were very willing to help me because they had seen me before. I wasn't like just some random face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I figured out this little system, and it worked really well.
Yeah, I got a senior this year, and he got accepted to SU there. He got like a little scholarship, and he was asking me, "Did you get a scholarship when you went to college?" I was like, "Yeah, I had great academic scholarship. I had great grades in high school." But I think in high school, like you're accountable. You have to be in class,
Yeah.
right? And as soon as I got to college, and I realized that
bit
my
freedom.
teacher didn't care if I was there or not.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, "We don't care." I just didn't go to class all that often.
Yeah,
I mean,
great.
I had the best of intentions. We'd leave before daylight, and we're like, we'll just go shoot a couple quail because we tried to have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays so we could hunt Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
That's what I did.
and
Exactly what I
work.
did.
So we'd go out, and all of a sudden, it was in the wet years of Arizona. There were Gambel's quail everywhere, and those little buggers just keep running further and further. And pretty soon, you're like, well, class starts in 10 minutes, and we're an hour away. We're going to be late. Let's just go. Let's just go chase them. And so then when I went, the story of how I ended up in Reno is my mom moved to Carson City. And so I went to visit her. And since I was now on academic probation, I thought, well, it's a cool place, a lot of public land, skiing, you know, hunting. So I took a job at a sawmill coming from a logging family. It's like, oh, I know how to do that kind of stuff.
your dad's a logger?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, my brother's still a logger.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And so I worked at
cool.
the sawmill and decided, well, I'll live here. And I worked graveyard shift in the boiler room, which is 11 to 7. And then because I was so starved out and so poor, I would ask for shifts on the green chain during the day shift. So if someone didn't, the green chain is where the green lumber comes off and you stack it. You used to manually stack it and put stickers so that the airflow would get there. So I'd grab shifts there when I could. And after a while, I'm so exhausted. I'm like, Randy, you graduated in the top of your class. Everyone, you know, you probably ought to go back to college. So I went to Nevada, Reno to talk to admissions, and they like, well, can we see your transcripts? So I showed them the Minnesota transcripts and my ACT score. They're like, oh, well, what about Arizona State? I'm like, you don't want to see those.
That place, don't worry about that.
They're like, no, we have to see those. And so I showed them to them, and they wouldn't accept me. They said, you got to go to the community college for a year and prove to us you're not a complete idiot. So
Dang, all because of little mistakes.
It's because of hunting. That's what hunting does to a person.
And but when I graduated, I got a job with one of the national CPA firms. They're like, what's the deal here? You got this really low GPA, but your core GPA in the business curriculum is a 4.0. I was like, well, let's just not talk about those other years. Those were colorful storytelling material, but let's just focus on what matters here.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I mean, you've obviously done amazing things for the rest of your life, but you had this little, blip, and
Everyone needs one.
yeah, I don't know.
Life.
Yeah, it's just a different. I mean, you've raised kid. You have one son.
One son,
one
yeah.
son. I mean, I'm at that stage right now where I'm looking at my kids like leaving, potentially leaving the house the next few years, and it's just.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to tell them to do, because I want them to do this kind of thing as well. Like I want them to go out and experience
where you
life.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want them to be feel like that's held against them in the long run, but I want them to go out and live and experience and do some things. But
I think everybody finds this incentive for change, or hopefully they do. And I met this lady named Kim, and I'm like, she actually talked to me. What is she doing talking to some ruffian mill worker like me? So I had a lot of incentive to straighten up my act, and now her and I have been married for 35 years, and
that's what happened then.
I attribute all of the good changes I made at that point in my life to her.
Good for you.
Do you ever accounting? Were you happy with accounting? Do you ever look back and think,
No, it was the best job I could have ever had.
Really?
For me. Accounting, when you become a CPA, it's broke into a couple things. There's the tax side, and then there's the audited financial side. They call it A&A, auditing and accounting. And then there's the consulting side. Well, I looked at the schedule on the tax side, and you get 80% of your work done from December 1st to April 15th. And then you fish and hunt.
So
or you golf, or you do whatever.
Yeah.
And after my first year at the CPA firm, I went and told the partners, I want to be in the tax side. They're like, good, because nobody wants to be in the tax side. I'm like, sign me up. And so I did. And then after 3 years of it, I moved to Montana.
Do you get that question quite a bit from people, especially from young people that are like, how do I want to get in the industry, or I want to be involved in this thing that you do. I want to be able to go on these hunts that they see you do.
You get it all the time.
And choosing a profession. It's like, what is the, looking back, what is the best piece of advice you could give somebody?
Well, for that one, usually the question is, how do I get your job?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell them, have a really good day job. Because most people don't realize that we started these media platforms in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed as a CPA through 2020 into 2020.
Yeah.
So for
You just
12,
barely retired then.
yeah, for 12 years, I was doing both of these things. But I've never been anyone who was afraid of just working hard for whatever it is I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And my wife, again, you hear so much about my wife on our podcast. I've told her, you need to host one of the podcasts.
Have you ever had her on your podcast?
No, she won't. She won't even be on video. Nothing. She's like the
She doesn't want
most
anything to do with
quiet
that?
in
Sounds
the
like my
background
wife.
person. But she said, look, I'm all on board with you doing this because I know how much time you spend in conservation and access and advocacy. If you think this will help, I'm on board, and we'll put a gob of money into it. But you got to promise it will never be our livelihood. Because if it's our livelihood, it's going to create pressures that make you hate hunting. And if you hated hunting, you'd be the most miserable, incorrigible person. No one could tolerate you. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Turned out to be gold. The best advice I got in this whole thing is what her saying, if you're going to do this, because she knew I was going to do it as a thing of passion. You can't make it our livelihood. So that's why I kept being a CPA for as many years as I did.
So you tell people to get a good day job.
That's what I tell them. I mean, and this is where people, I think, always try to assume what everyone else's motivations are for why they do something or why they start this activity or this business. For me, I'd been doing this kind of stuff for 20 years before I started these platforms. And I'd grown frustrated that I didn't feel I was making much progress. So I always told my wife, someday when we can afford it, this is what I'm going to do. This is just my full-time life, and I'm going to, whatever money we save, some people when they retire or quit or whatever you want to call it, they move to Florida to be near the grandkids, or they move to Vegas to golf or whatever. I'm going to take, now that I have time and money to do the things I do, I'm going to blow it all doing these
Thing
platforms.
you want to do. Yeah.
It's what I want to do in life. And so back to your question, Trail, of what's my advice. My advice would be find something that you love and do it, because if you love it, you're going to be the best at it. And I don't care if you're the best ditch digger, you're going to be very financially successful as the best ditch digger if that's what you like to do.
Yeah.
And
that's what I tell people too.
Yeah.
I mean, find your passion, find the thing that you're good at, and try to find some way to make a living at it. And I think, this will probably lead into some further discussion down the road. But people ask, they'll ask me, do you feel any sort of way about, maybe making money, right? You're making money, a living off of like this passion, this thing that's like a resource, right? And how do you, quote unquote, justify it, put it in quotations. For me, I always answer, it's like, well, it's the thing that I love. It's the thing that I'm good at. So like, I don't know if that, to me, that's okay. I mean, to you, it's okay that you feel like you.
I don't have, I wake up every day and say, our media platforms and what we do is hunting better off because of the things that we do. And I don't have to think about that very long. Yeah. It's like, and this is where it's popular to criticize anybody who has platforms. It has been for the last few years, and I get it. I listen to every comment. I read every email. I have so many emails in my inbox right now because I've been on the road, but I kind of break them into a few different categories. There are those legitimate concerns that I listen to. Sometimes it might hurt. to have a realization of, oh yeah, I could have done that better. But by listening to it and not being sensitive about it, I feel that we produce a better end outcome.
Yeah.
And then there's the group of people who they're just having a bad day, right? Everybody can have a bad day, and maybe they send you a comment that they're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And then there's the people who, there's the old motto of I'm not happy till you're not happy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who wake up every day trying to make someone else unhappy. And so I try to categorize those of where is it, and I spend a ton of time listening to those people who have those what I think are legitimate concerns. I'm not sensitive about it. I invite it. I accept it, and I don't care what you do, whether it's in this business, any other business. If you start having success, and however you want to define success, we define it differently than most other platforms, but if you start having success, you're going to have your critics. And, part of the maturity of that is being able to say, what's a legitimate concern and what's just somebody, they're a professional critic.
True.
And so it comes with the territory, and I feel blessed to get to do what I do every day.
When you started the platform, what was your motivation for it?
It's the business plan. So this is how an accountant builds a business plan. He kills about 30 trees and you print something off about that big, because back at the time, a PDF file that big would have taken 4 floppy disks. So the business plan is still sitting there on a shelf, and the very first, the why.
You still have it?
Still have it. That has not changed. It's been tweaked a little bit. And it was to promote self-guided public land hunting and create advocates for that cause. So it didn't say anything about profit. It didn't say anything about likes or views. It just said create advocates.
Likes and views. Did that exist?
It didn't.
Probably did.
It didn't. And so, now it's not necessarily to create advocates, but it's because creating an advocate is hard. How do you measure that? And so we've tweaked it a little bit, but it still says to inspire people to advocate for hunting and the causes essential to hunting. So it's the why is still
morally the same.
It has never changed for all practical purposes. And if you come to our office, you'll see every whiteboard has that written on it.
It does. I have seen it.
Yeah, Brady's been there.
I've been there quite a few times, and I've noticed that. I've taken pictures of it. It's interesting.
So if the crew comes to me with a new idea, I'm like, what is this going to help us? And if they're trained to make their pitch to attach it to that. And then if you want to get into a little more granular, there's different types of content, long form, short form. We have all kinds of platforms like your podcasts and video and the whole works. And each of them serve a different purpose. But 40 to 50% of our content has to fall in these 4 categories that make like zero money. It's called education, information, conservation, and advocacy. Over here, 50 to 60% of our stuff is inspiration and aspiration. Because if we're going to inspire people to become advocates, let's face it, someone is going to watch a really good elk hunt, and we can put little nuggets of conservation and advocacy in there. The stuff you do over here that's just, hey, there's a land trade and you need to support it or you need to oppose it or there's this legislation, those don't get a lot of views. So you got to produce a lot of that. And so it's just our business model that attaches to that why. How do we measure our why of advocacy? By how we measure the content that we produce. And I know that sounds like very accountantish, business schoolish, but it's kind of how I've had to do it.
I think it's pertinent. One question I had is, this is like hearing you talk. If you started that and you said 08, right?
Yeah, I first started kicking it around in 2005.
Okay, so and early 2000s.
Yeah, I came to the SHOT Show here every year and got told, kind of patted on, good luck with that, son. Yeah, I got laughed out of the place every time. So
if that was the business plan from that point until this point, how's that developed and changed, or has it?
Oh, huge. Like at the time, My son at the time was getting ready to head off to college, and he's like, Dad, YouTube is going to be it. Why you would go on TV? So he pitched me on. He's like, so I went to all of these people at the SHOT Show, the experts in the industry, and said, I want to be the first person who does something on YouTube that's, advocacy and access on public lands and self-guided. Well, the public land self-guided thing was already foreign enough. When I said YouTube, most of them are like, tube what? Yeah. And so it became obvious if I was going to work into trying to sway or move the pendulum a bit in this industry or in this media genre, I was going to have to go to TV because that's where it was. So I ended up on Outdoor Channel for 2 years, Sportsman Channel for 5 or 6 years, something like that. But the whole time, the plan was, I'm going to YouTube someday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think we were one of the first platforms that made that migration from traditional TV over to digital.
So the way you deliver it has changed, and I think everybody's seen that, and I think it'll probably continue. But as far as like the actual message, your business plan, if you go to like the root of your business plan, public land advocacy, DIY hunting. I mean, the thing that's like striking me is that like the early 2000s, you saw a need for this. Like you looked at it from your perspective and you're like, there's a need here.
Right.
This is what I'm trying to do. So, if I can help other people try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So like, 20 years later, like, is that need still there? Has it changed any?
It hasn't changed at all. And here's kind of the epiphany for me. Was 1998, I go to Washington, D.C. to lobby for a bill called CARA, the Conservation and Reinvestment Act.
In 98?
98.
That was the year I graduated.
I am like, I am the greenest guy that ever got thrown off the turnip truck on Pennsylvania Avenue. And so I go there and I look, I want this bill. It would have put a small excise tax on backpacks and tents and everything else. And over here is the traditional outdoor rec industry opposing it because they don't want a Pittman-Robertson style tax on them. But there's also some lobbyists from parts of the hunting industry and the fishing industry that are over there with them. And I look at, here I am. I don't know anybody. I don't have any connections. I don't have any voice other than there's a Montana senator who knows my passion for this. And he said, I want you here. I didn't stand a chance. So I left there realizing, you know what? If you send Randy Newbergs here, we're not experts at this. We're not lobbyists. We don't have any money. No wonder we're going to get steamrolled. Mm-hmm. So that's where I started seeing this. And then I started seeing this huge push to sell the public lands. And so I started going to a lot of these conferences and places saying, hey, we can't be doing this public land. If it wasn't for public land, I would not be hunting. Mm-hmm. People are like, I'm like, you know what? We are going to get creamed. If ever there's a time where the average hunter is going to get creamed, it's going to be in my lifetime. And so that's when I started formulating this idea with a couple friends. We actually happened to serve on a nonprofit board at the time called the Ryan the Hunters Institute. It was based in Helena, Montana, started by Jim Posowitz. And we were on his board of directors, and we're struggling with this because outdoor TV is there, and it's all, there's a lot of stuff that's high fence. There's a lot of things that are just not the way my buddies hunt. And I don't care what.
Shooting giant bucks, shooting giant whitetail out of a tree stand.
5 of them a year. Got them all named and pictures and 7 years of history.
And whatever anyone wants to do, that's fine. But it bothered me that there was no voice for the type of stuff I do. And therefore, there was no advocacy for these things. And actually, at the time, I'm seeing some of these people advocating against the cause of what I think are the average hunter out west anyhow. And so that's where we cooked up the idea.
Why at that point didn't you think like, you know what, if I just keep my mouth shut, this is the best for me, Randy Newberg? Like if I just keep my mouth shut, if I just keep it going, like I'm going to get tags for me and mine.
I think it's just in your DNA that you either are one of those people who speak up or sit down. And I've never been the sit down person. I've never been that person who screams and yells. Yeah. But I was blessed to grow up And my wife is so observant of explaining all these things that she sees in me that I never quite put together. But my parents divorced when I was 10. So in this little logging town I grew up in, everybody hunted. That was your thing. Your school teacher were hunters. The merchants were hunters. Every mentor, everyone you looked up to in town was a hunter.
Did you have a deer hunter's ball? We
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal, huh?
Oh, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brady knows what northern Minnesota is like opening week of hunting season. It's like the Orange Army redefined. And
Big tradition.
You ever been to Utah in October?
I have. And northern Minnesota.
Worse?
Way bigger.
Oh, it's worse. They wear orange from their socks all the way to the top of their head all day long. But anyhow, when my parents divorced, my dream of being a hunter pretty much went away because my dad moved off for a few years and was trying to find work. And I'm like, great, how am I ever going to get to hunt? And lucky for me, there was public land right out the back door of our trailer house. So I'm the oldest of three, and my mom's trying to raise us. She's a waitress in a diner. And if I would have asked her, Mom, I need $1 today to go hunting, she would have done everything she could to find $1, but I don't think she could have found $1 in 1974. But I could take my mink and muskrats and weasels, and I could take them to the fur buyer who met at the hardware store where we bought our ammunition, and I could go buy some 22 shells or ammo for my 410. And that public land, I got to go and hunt. And yeah, at my age at that time, I probably wasn't supposed to be plinking rabbits and grouse, but I was. And at that point in my life, my entire world was upside down. When you're 10 years old, and it's a time in the early 70s where divorce is not common like you see today. The stigma that came with being the only kid in your class whose parents are divorced, the whole world knows about it. Just that. Everything that seemed like this American institution of stability, boom, gone in the course of a couple months. And my dream of being a hunter went with it.
It was shaken big time.
But because of that public land, I would go there. And now I remember, I crying as this kid, trying to understand things. I'd go there and everything made sense. It was like, this is where I found my sanity. It's where I redirected myself positively. And it was life-changing for me. So as I got older, I realized that without public land, I wouldn't have got to do any of that. And so coming from this community where volunteerism and giving back was part of the ethos, it still is today. Big Falls, Minnesota, some of the most generous people with their time and their money. I just took that with me. And so rather than say, hey, life's great, I got all these ranch clients as a CPA, I could just hunt my life away. I didn't feel, that it wasn't the option that I felt good about. So
no, that's
more than you needed, but anyhow.
no, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
I mean, that was awesome. I mean, I'm thinking back to when we had Derek Wolf on, and Derek, same thing, similar type of story, broken home, just really tough childhood. And he talked very similarly about just the opportunity to go hunting, deer hunting for
and what it did for him.
And what it did for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I think, I mean, I've said this before a bunch. It's just like, I don't know I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't. I'm just not good enough with my spoken word to really captivate and tell people what those experiences mean to me. Like they legitimately have been life-changing. Like their motivation for me to get out of bed every day. Like when I hit a treadmill in the morning, it's the only reason I'm hitting a treadmill. It's the only reason I'm not eating donuts all day, every day, because I love donuts. You know what I mean? And ice cream.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do love donut. I
me
do.
too.
I
Yeah.
don't think I knew you actually loved donuts specifically.
I do like it. Well, yeah, I mean, a raspberry fritter at Maverick, you can't beat it. I can tell you how many calories, 680 in it.
Maverick is a good
But
gas
it
station.
is. I mean, it really is like the motivation for so many things in my life. And I don't know. I mean, I've said this a lot, but I don't know if it's just like, well, I'm in my 40s now. And I don't know if it's nostalgia. I keep getting like increasingly more so, but I just want somebody to have that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's to that point, there's another thing that I took with me from that experience is the benefit of growing up in a small town. I cannot overstate.
Yeah.
Because so many people saw, hey, this is a tough situation. My school teacher, Paul Reese, went out of his way in 5th and 6th grade to keep me on the straight and narrow. Owen Gordon, who owned the hardware store, he had the hunter ed class. I mean, the number of people, aunts, uncles, community members who just put their fingerprint on a little bit as I went. And at the time, you don't realize how big of an impact it's having on you. And now, you know, as I became an adult and I had a child, it's like, you know what? That's the kind of generosity with my time and my whatever I have to give that I want to have as an adult. I looked back at what that generosity that was poured upon me. And so, you know, if I ever get fired from this job and everybody said, Newberg, get out of here, I'm still going to be doing it. It's just, it's my way of giving back. And I looked at, you know, how many guys in our little town would go on in the springtime. You'd volunteer to go plant trees. As a kid, you know, your parents were dragging you along because you were going on a tree planting thing, part of the conservation stuff. Everybody was giving back in some little way. And at the time, you didn't realize it. You're like, well, you know, they just like to go plant trees and then they all drink a bunch of cheap beer afterwards. You know, that's what you think as a kid. But you get indoctrinated into that and you grow up in it and you realize how much your life was changed by people who invested in you. And I, like you were saying, how you feel this need that someone else gets the chance to enjoy it. That's what drives me now. If I never get to hunt again, doesn't matter for me personally, but I would consider myself a complete failure if hunting doesn't exist 100 years from now.
You know, what's really interesting there, like your story, my story could not be more opposite, right? Like you've known me and like I come from one of the most probably privileged backgrounds, amazing dad and mom, married their whole lives, still married today, like unbelievable mentorship, childhood, everything. So like when I try to tell people what hunting means to me, it's not, I don't see it being as impactful to the community like yours would be coming from, right? Because you have a lot more things that you had to go through from your life that hunting saved you from. But at the same rate, like hunting for me, it gave me my life, just like you're saying it gave you yours, right? Hunting entirely gave me my individual life. And that's how I feel about it. And that's why I feel, you know, the responsibility with GOHUNT of being, I want other people to have the opportunity. That's why we try and supply like where the opportunities of hunting are. Because if it's my background, couldn't be more different from yours, but our feelings and wants towards hunting are the exact same.
Parallel.
That's what it does for people. You know what I mean? And trail is probably a mix in the middle of Randy and I. And it's like all of us feel the same way. Yours is a mix in the middle of us as well, Brady. It's like everybody, we know what it did for us. We all wish we were better with words, like Trail said. I've said it before. Our words on the podcast aren't always the best.
I listen to other podcasts and I always go away from it thinking, man, I just need to like pull out the dictionary and just
learn
like
how to
learn a
speak.
word or two a day.
Yeah.
Just so that
Learn
I
how
can,
to speak.
I'm going
But
to
it's,
try
you know,
to use a different word.
But
It's the app called Vocabulary. So every single day,
An
folks,
app?
this stupid
Of course
app is
there's
now
an app
ads.
for it.
Yeah.
I
I don't
don't
know.
podcast for that. Trail.
Of course there's an
But
app.
every single day, the Vocabulary app gives me words, and I can sit there and scroll through them and see
Stupid
definitions.
apps.
Yeah.
And so I do it every single day.
You know, my impact when I tell people that isn't the same because they're like, oh yeah, of course it is. You know what I mean? Like, what else did you need in life? But my individual life, that's what hunting gave me. Like that's where my individuality came from, was through hunting.
Yeah. And I get it when I read Brady's stories about him and his family deer hunting, your annual deer
Yeah,
hunts.
it's the funnest thing
you
I ever do. I wish I could do that more often.
Yeah.
It literally means the world.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'd rather do.
And you think about how many times have you been at an event and there's a whole bunch of people there and somehow the hunters end up in the same little corner. Somehow we
always do.
find each other. And I always try to figure that out. How, you know, I'm at this event and there's 100 people there and there's only one other hunter. And somehow that person and I end up in a conversation. I don't know if it's about our traits, our mannerisms, our views, our perspectives, but somehow we end up connected. And I don't care where you come from on the economic sphere, the whatever spectrum. When you're a hunter, you're a hunter. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So
So what do you say to the people? And this goes for everybody. I mean, Brady just said that he wished he could do You could do that family hunt all the time, right?
all the time.
So what do you say to the people that are saying because of platforms like ours, Randy's, that they can't do it all the time because we've created more hunters?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say to that? How do you feel about it? I can tell you how I feel, but I thought I'd ask you guys first.
I mean, there's always though opportunities for us to do things as a family. We're always talking about right now trying to figure out other things to do besides for our annual deer hunt. Like we've been doing our annual deer hunt for a long time, and we're still able to do our annual deer hunt.
Yeah,
there's still things we can do as a family to go hunting, and maybe it's not deer hunting all the time, but maybe it's some other type of hunting. But we will find a way to do it because we're just those type of people that are chasing opportunities because there is a lot. People think there might not be, but when it comes down to it, there is a lot of hunting opportunities.
we just went through this whole exercise with Idaho. So Idaho's OTC tags went on sale December 1st. Did you play the game?
I didn't. I was
You
standing,
didn't?
I was standing in the canyons of Arizona. I didn't
There you
even
go.
have cell service.
Yeah,
But-
so I tried it, logged on, got my numbers, best number I ever had, which I was excited about. I was like number 5,000 and some. I mean, I think previously I've been like number 13,000, and I think one year I was 20,000. And so to me, I was like, oh, sweet. I'm going to get a tag. And for whatever reason this year, I don't know how the system was run. I know people can show up, they can buy tags. I've been told that they can buy tags for other people if they actually show up in person. So I didn't get my tag, right? Didn't get my elk tag, didn't get a deer tag. And there were some available when it got to me. Like I could have bought a tag. I didn't get the tag or one of my top 10, right, for elk. And I bet I've had no less than 50 people reach out to me, either DM me, send me emails, and just say, man, this sucks. Can't get my elk tag. I can't get my deer tag. And I thought about it. I'm thinking, I didn't get mine either. The thing I keep thinking, though, and I keep going back to it, is that somebody got that elk tag.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody got a deer tag. It wasn't me this time. Maybe next year it'll be my time.
Yeah.
Somebody got it. Somebody's going hunting. Somebody's getting out into the field. Somebody's getting the opportunity to participate in hunting, the lifestyle, the tradition, and conservation through buying a permit. Somebody got that permit. So for me, I'm just like, I didn't get it this year. Maybe I'll get it next year.
You're still jacked for that person who got the tag.
I'm genuinely excited that somebody gets an opportunity to go hunting. I'm going to try to find my opportunities, and sure, they exist probably less so than they did, maybe, and I think there's ways that you can look at this. You can grow their pie. You can grow the resource as well as the number of people that are participating in hunting.
Right.
But, for me, I'm just like, somebody got it.
Yeah.
Somebody's going hunting.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have a life-changing experience. I talked to a guy, I had this tag in Nevada, northern Nevada, deer tag. The guy was out hunting. He shows, pulls out his phone. We're shooting the bull, and he shows me a picture of this giant bull elk he shot in Idaho. Giant bull, 380 bull. And I'm like, man, incredible bull. I wish that was me. But I also am just so happy that this guy got a chance to go out and hunt. He was so excited to show me these photos of this animal.
Yeah. I don't know how much time we have to explore what you just threw out there, Trail, but people who listen to my platforms are probably tired of it because it's a business school exercise that the world is split into two groups of people, scarcity thinkers and abundance thinkers. And the abundance thinkers are what you just referred to, build a bigger pie. If you want to double your odds for a sheep tag, put twice as many sheep on the mountain. If you want to see your odds go in half, two things can happen. Either the number of sheep or antelope or whatever numbers on the ground get cut in half, so tags get cut at least in half, or there's double the number of applicants. It could be a mix of any or all of that. For me, I've always been an abundance thinker. I can't, if you read the psychology of scarcity, and in business school, we study that stuff. Using your Idaho example, there's scarcity in fact and scarcity in perception. So you think about Idaho, and you see this in a lot of states. It happened in my state, in Montana, that if there's a perception of scarcity, there's a human mechanism, a psychology of I might miss out, and I got to have it because it's valuable if it's scarce. Well, Idaho, back when was it, 2018 or 19, when they so it's the same number of tags.
Yep.
They just restrict them to certain districts and units. That created, in my mind, one, there has been a growth in total number of applicants, yes. But it also created a scarcity of perception. And so what do people do? They build bots and they got 14 friends logged in. You know, I got to get this tag. Look at how many Idaho tags get returned. A crazy, I would bet if you did the math, and I don't know if anyone ever has, the number of non-resident tags that get returned in Idaho is probably higher than any other state. And I think it's because of this perceived scarcity thing. Everyone has to have it. So you get this chaos on December 1st, and then they just turn them back. Yeah. I think if Idaho didn't allow you non-residents to turn their tags back in,
there'd be far fewer people buying.
There'd be so many fewer people, and it'd be so much easier. But it's the first one out of the chute. It's the safety net, right? Well, if I got this, I can swing for the fences in Arizona, or I can try for this in New Mexico. So there's a whole lot of psychology in that. None of that denies the fact that we have lost a lot of access where people used to have access on private land, on other places, state programs that were enrolled in access programs. So now we have more people per huntable acre on public land. That I agree, that's probably the case. So what are we going to do about that? Are we going to be scarcity thinkers and fight over the last mule deer that's standing in Nevada? Are we going to fight over the last bighorn sheep that is standing in Montana? Are we going to fight over the last elk that might somehow be in Idaho? Or are we going to do what our predecessors did and do the things necessary to improve access, improve habitat, improve the numbers, the herd numbers? That's where we're going to make progress. The hunter numbers are going to fluctuate up and down. And right now we went through one of those up cycles. What happened in 2023?
Down
It
cycle.
flattened and in some states came down. And we're going to be seeing more of that. But anyone who doesn't get their tag, you know, it's got to be somebody's fault.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what it always is.
I'm blaming Brady always.
there you go.
I didn't even,
So
that state you mentioned, I also did not get a tag, but I could have, but I elected not to. I watched the whole
Sure.
process and looked at it all.
Yeah,
But-
I think it's not just one thing. It is so many things. And do platforms and like ours bring more people to the fold? I hope so. I mean, we're here to create advocates. I want people to be connected to these lands through the experience of hunting. So yeah, I'm sure we bring people there. But that's, you know, someone brought me here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone brought me here.
Yeah.
I agree, and thank God that they did.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, legitimately, like,
You know, and you guys, I read it out there all the time, and you guys may not want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about
No,
it.
we do. We want to.
If I make you guys uncomfortable,
I don't give
you
a
read
shit.
about quote unquote the GOHUNT effect, right?
Oh, yeah. Read
Yeah,
about
you
that.
guys read it. I
yeah.
hear about it. Well, to me, I look at when I started multi-state applications in 1995. It was a serious sacrifice at my household to apply and build points in Colorado that year. And the next year I added Arizona, and then I added Nevada. Every year I would save enough money. I'd work enough overtime. And at that time, there were research services that they found out I was doing I don't know how they found out I was doing multiple state applications, but I got letters in the mail. Hey, we'll do your applications for you. Okay. Do I want to pay that much money to have someone do my application for me? No, I'm too much of a tightwad accountant, and I'm kind of a do-it-yourself sort of person. So I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And so there are really good services out there that will do your application start to finish. And there are tens of thousands of very wealthy hunters who use those services. But when you guys came out, I still remember you guys were at one of the shows here in Vegas.
RMEF.
It was
Back
an
in the
RMEF
day,
one,
yeah.
yeah.
It was the
Okay.
very first
we've
one we
come
ever
full
did.
circle.
And I see this GOHUNT sign, and somehow I'd heard about you guys, and I'm like, this is so much BS. There is nothing that's going to replace my spreadsheets. I am like the Charlie Daniels of Excel, man. I am. And so I came over there, and I'm like, wow. You want to talk about a democracy of information? This levels the playing field so that you don't need to hire your own consultant to do this. And to me, it was the best thing that I could have seen. And I still remember Porter. He asked me, he says, well, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'm pretty impressed. I'd like to try it out. And he's like, well, give me your credit card and I'll let you try it out. I still get charged on my credit card.
That sounds like poor,
but that's all right.
Especially back in those days.
But my point of this is, and you guys, I know, are the ones who are in the spotlight of it. Who decided that you shouldn't be able to bring lots of public information to one place and make it easier for the person who doesn't have thousands of dollars to hire their own very good consultant? Mm-hmm. Whose outfitter is not going to be doing all their applications for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, to say it's the GOHUNT effect, it's the information effect, that's the technology effect. Mm-hmm. You guys have just been smart enough to say, let's bring it to one place.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've done a lot of other things, but I read that and I'm like, okay, whatever, call it what you want.
It's the progression of everything. I think we were talking earlier and I said the same thing. Like, do you have plumbers that are, is there a plumbers union right now that's like bitching and moaning that YouTube exists, that now I can go on YouTube and fix understand how to fix my own faucet? Yeah. It's the same thing. It's just a progression of technology as a whole, I think. And this is just me personally. Like, I don't necessarily understand like the naysayers, because this is an opportunity that exists for everybody for not that much money.
Right.
You can now plan your own strategy. You can apply across multiple states. I mean, it is expensive. And I say expensive in relative terms because it just depends on what it's worth to you. Mm-hmm. Like, anytime anybody comes to me and says, yeah, this is you're making it a rich man sport, hunting is becoming a rich man sport. I'm like, a hunting license in Arizona, it's $160. Yeah. What's it worth to you? What do you value?
Yeah.
That's like always my response is like, what is your value? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you value in life? Is it a Celsius drink at every gas station you stop at? Yeah. Because if that's what you value, spend your $160 there. Do you know what I mean? But if not, if you value it enough, it's something that you want to do, you'll find the money to go do it. So I think it's probably a pretty rare case today where, somebody can't make it work.
Your comment earlier of, it's got to be someone's fault if I don't get what I want, right? Whether hunting or anything else.
Brady's.
Like, if I don't get it, it's somebody's fault.
My fault.
Usually it's always Brady Miller's.
Yeah.
But
I wreck everything.
In the whole go hunt effect thing, look, we leveled the playing field of information to make it easier for people to find opportunities outside of their home state, because hunting has changed to a certain point. Right. To your point earlier, though, through loss of access more than anything. Mm-hmm. Like, that's been the main. There are more hunters at trailheads because of lack of access, right? Private land being bought into, I don't know. I don't want to throw any rich individual name out there, but now hunters aren't allowed on that piece of property because they don't want public access on their property, where the rancher before, who was born, raised their family, they always knew that was a community thing. So you lose that. You lose it through land swaps. You lose it through other business opportunities.
Development.
Money, right? It's all money. You're going to lose it to money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's the number one reason, right? And it's like the GOHUNT effect. What is the GOHUNT effect? Yeah. What is it that we just please prove to me, what is it? Because we don't make tag quotas. Right. We don't do any of the biology reports and anything that these states do.
Do we change the weather?
Do we change the weather?
And make drought?
No, you know what we do is we put out the information that is pertinent to people to go hunting and who want to go hunting. Right. But we also spread it throughout all the Western states. I would equally, right? I mean, not that everybody wants to hunt each state equally, but the amount of effort that we put into each of those states that we cover and opportunities existing in those states, it's all a level playing field. So if you lost timber access or private land access to this public land place that you used to, if you lost that through a land swap, go to a neighbor, like there's neighboring state opportunity, and here you go. Right. Like, now you can figure it out.
And again,
and try.
It's personal perspective. It's scarcity.
No. It is.
Yeah, the scarcity mindset is a very, very interesting thing. Yeah. It's like the diamonds, right? Diamonds are a scarcity mentality.
Exactly.
But they're not scarce.
Why is a golden diamond, why are they expensive?
Yeah.
Because they're perceived to be scarce and they're hard to acquire. And I don't want to say any of that to discount the frustration some people feel. That's why earlier when we talked about, when people complain, I take those legitimately, and I assume every comment I get is a legitimate concern. After a while, if it's the 13th message from that person this week, it's no longer, probably more of sniveling than it is a legitimate concern. But Back to your point, we need more access. Look at the trends of mule deer in the United States. It is not favorable.
Yeah.
Look at the trends of wild sheep in every state other than where we're sitting in Nevada. It is not favorable. Nevada and Utah, maybe Colorado being the exceptions. The northern states of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, not good. Alaska, not good, whether it's weather, whether it's disease or whatever. So we're talking about an awful lot of things that are changing the base of this resource. And we have to be doing more to put more of those species on the mountain, on the prairie, whatever. And if there's one thing I hate about point systems, these elaborate draw schemes, it almost feels like somehow that entitles me to, well, I'm supposed to get a tag. I've bought a point every year, at $50 a point. And therefore I've bought this. And that's my advocacy. And that's what I focus on. Rather than putting more elk out there, I'm going to focus on, I got to keep my place in line with points. And I don't know that anyone makes that as a conscious decision, but I think underneath there's this feeling that, well, I deserve this. We're rich man sport. My dad never hunted out of the county, let alone out of the state. None of my uncles hunted out of state. So this traveling hunter thing is a kind of newer idea since probably mid 90s, maybe somewhere in there.
Late 90s.
And it just is what it is. It was way too rich for my dad, being a broke down logger, to go to Montana elk hunting. At the time, it might have cost $200 for a tag. He would have been, there's not a chance I'm paying $200. So the rich man sport, I try to put myself in their shoes and understand that concern. And sometimes I know it does cost a lot of money to do some of these things. But relative to what it's always been, it's no more of a rich man sport than what it always has.
Yeah.
Never. It's always been that case. With that. Western hunting, you had to be a Roosevelt or a Grinnell to go out Western hunting back in the start. So you want to talk about a rich man sport? Think about how rich it was in the 1880s, 90s, 1900s. You had to be a Rockefeller. You had to be an English lord. You had to be a whatever. And through the hard work of people 100 years ago, that's where it became accessible to the average person.
Yeah. And the thing about the traveling hunter too, that's a beautiful thing. And what we believe we do, if you want to call the Go Hunt effect anything, with this traveling hunters, we are hoping and we believe we do make hunters care about their neighboring states and neighboring hunts and want to support and advocate for those other states. Because you look around where these states are losing fern fang hunts, right? Oregon is throwing around some really wild ideas about no hunting, like just generally at all. It's like, okay, well, as we get more people from outside of Oregon to care about Oregon and Oregon's hunting, and to care about Colorado's fern fang hunts, and to care about Washington losing their spring bear hunt, like you get more people to care outside of your home state. That's advocacy, right? Like they sit there and the naysayers and the famine mentality kind of people, they'll sit there and bitch and complain about people showing up to bear hunt. But you're really going to want them when your state's trying to shut down bear hunting. Like you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So what do you think about this then? So I met some people. They're from Washington. We just talked about Washington. So I was going to do this Washington example. So I met them on my family deer hunt. I was talking to these two old guys. They were phenomenal guys. We talked for like 20 minutes when I should have been glassing, looking for deer. But I was like, so you guys hunt Washington often? You ever draw any good tags? And they're like, we haven't hunted Washington in 10 to 15 years. They've lived there the whole life because they said it's so messed up management-wise and trying to get tagged, populations, like their state doesn't care about hunters. So they don't hunt their state anymore. So they're always hunting Idaho, Montana, Colorado, they're hunting other states. So then my thought was well, how do we fix that then in your state to help you? Because we want non-residents to go around and hunt our states. We want to be able to do that. But like if we could fix the problems in people's home states, then maybe there could be some less non-resident pressure going across these other states. But we would love that. But it's just so messed up right now that we can't hunt our home state. It's not an enjoyable hunt. You don't see any animals. You don't have any fun anymore. So we go to other states and we're traveling now.
I mean, generally speaking, that's just another example of lost access. You're losing the access to hunt your home state, and it's through, messed
management.
up, management and politics, and not caring about you as a hunter. They're more concerned about money and land swaps and all of that stuff for the state. That is where the non-resident becomes your best friend. The advocacy of helping you try and save this resource that you have in your home state. And when it gets overrun, what are they supposed to do now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting in Washington. I just finished up a 4-part series with Andrew McKean on our podcast, and we used 2 states, Washington and Colorado, as the focus of those things you mentioned, the spring bear hunt, the gubernatorial appointments of people who actually are stated that they believe in the animal rights type mindset. And from that process and the 2 years of research leading up to it and going into it, there are so many amazing hunters in Washington who are saying, please come help, but advocate in some way. And they have said the same thing, Brady. If you guys in whatever state are tired of Washington hunters, you're about ready to get a lot more of them.
Yeah.
And I go do the Portland show every February. I do the Bend, Oregon show every March. And they're really changing their stuff, and their opportunities are shrinking in Oregon. And I do these Q&A sessions. When I first started doing them 5 or 6 years ago, it was more about tactics and strategies. Now it's all about where can I get a tag, because my home state, I'm kind of losing out, as they have to shrink things, and the opportunity gets less and less. I'm looking at Oregon. I'm looking at Montana. I'm looking at, wherever. And so, to your guys' point, it hits home with me that don't think that what happens in Washington or Oregon or Iowa or, North Dakota or wherever, don't think that isn't affecting you and how many people you say there's too many people at the trailhead. Well, it's not just happening in my little Bozeman, Montana. It's not just happening in, it is so much bigger than that. And that's where I listen to a lot of these concerns, and they focus on one straw in a whole bale of hay. It is a lot of things going on. It seems intimidating. It seems overwhelming that we have so many things that are on our plate. But guess what? It was hard work for those who came before us. And if you're afraid of hard work, elk hunting is not for you, and conservation is not for you.
I would agree with that.
And I'm up for it.
Yeah.
And I just hope that everybody who is expressing these frustrations, whether they're legitimate, that a lot of them are, or whether they're, just the person who complains all the time, I hope they think about, what am I doing to put more animals out there? What am I doing to create more access? Because if every one of us spent 1/10 of the time towards those causes that we spend on, whatever platforms here or there, I would rather nobody watches any of my stuff if that meant that they would go and do conservation work instead. Please get rid of, unsubscribe everything of mine and go take that time and do conservation work, do advocacy work, show up for a hearing, comment on something. We'd be better off than you watching or listening to my platforms.
Yeah. And something commenting is so easy too. I hear it a lot. Like, you guys send me a message back and like, why are you supporting some of these things that are not other states that you've never gone to before? And it's like, that's why I'm supporting it.
Yeah.
Because like, I might never hunt spring bears in Washington if they ever made a season, but damn well I'm going to fight for it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come to my state eventually. Yep. And I want those people then turning around and be like, you guys were supporting us, let's support you. It's all hunting together. It's not this state by state thing like, oh yeah, I'm not going to help Idaho because they keep screwing over non-residents. No, I'm going to keep helping Idaho. I don't care what you guys do. I'm going to keep helping you. If something bad happens, I'll be right there commenting, reading the commission notes, checking things out, submitting my comments, sharing things.
Yeah.
Like, just working together.
It's hard to know what to do, I think, sometimes, but I think we could all do a better job of because in today's day and age, there's just seems less opportunity to actually get out and get dirt underneath your fingernails and do things on the ground, but I think so many of these are, big picture issues. It is things like access and, expansion and, management in a state like Washington or Oregon, or even as you were talking about, you were saying like North Dakota, we don't think that this is ever going to, like, we don't think that this thing that's happening in some other states ever going to come to our state. It's like I live in Utah and I look at Washington and I think that would never happen in Utah. But if you look at the Wasatch Front, I mean, it's you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you look at Colorado and then you look at Denver and you're like, who's making,
introducing wolves?
If this goes to a vote, you know,
exactly.
Who knows?
Well, Arizona and Nevada are the two most urbanized states in the nation in terms of percentage of their population that lives within a metro area. You don't think that those two states couldn't easily be in the crosshairs?
Yep.
Yeah.
For this kind, some of that
So
kind of stuff.
that's when it matters, and I mean, it'll matter. It will matter. It'll matter in every state in the West eventually.
It'll always matter. And what's so interesting, just at a like a very high level, 30,000 foot level, it's like this hunter thing, this bifurcation of teams, non-resident and resident. Hunters, for the most part, are very, America proud and support the nation, the whole deal. It's like we're all one nation, the whole deal. Yeah. It's like, but then when it comes to hunting, no. You're either a resident or a non-resident, and like we are very different. Why is that the case? I go, we're all hunters, right? We all want the best.
You're either a crossbow hunter or a bow hunter.
Yeah, like
you're a traditional archer. You're shooting a recurve, and I'm shooting a compound.
We're not
on the same team.
Your accolades, no. You hunt with a rifle. Your accolades, but it gets so weird when you get underneath the covers there, and it's divided. Like, what the hell? Aren't we all just want the best for each other and all the hunting in everyone's state?
You would hope so, but in a lot of, I always have to remind myself that, hunters are a cross section of American society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things that we observe or are feeling or part of are happening in other places. Like I have a friend who's a fanatic golfer, and he is complaining about the number of new golfers. He's like, they don't understand etiquette. They don't know when to be quiet. They play slow. They won't let anyone play through. They don't replace their divots. He's like, where did they all come from? I can't even get a tee time anymore. And I'm listening to him, and I'm like, man, this sounds like,
eerily similar.
And my friends who ski, I don't even ski anymore. It isn't even worth it, is what you hear them saying. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is this just an American thing where now we're more affluent with our time and our money?
Yeah.
Where we are passionate about certain activities, and rather than be generalists across 100 activities, we're like, I'm going to do this one or two things, and I'm going to do it every spare minute I got. And so I don't know if that's part of it, but listening to my friend who is a serious golfer, he's like, well, there should be some sort of exam. You should have to somehow vest yourself in this if you're going to be a golfer. I'm like, wow, golf ed, golf safety class. But
I think it's that, and I also think that it's everybody has one of these, and now y'all have the avenue to post your opinion at any time. So it's just so much more in your
people,
face.
whether they have 500 followers, 5,000 followers, or 5 million followers, they all feel equally able to put their advice, their thought, their critique. They all feel very capable of doing it. It's like
different day and age for sure.
Well, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, you've talked about access, like what other things do you see in terms of like threat to the tradition of hunting?
The access, I think, is number one, and we lose access through a variety of ways, whether it's development, subdivisions, land ownership changes that Lorenzo was talking about, state agencies. This is the one that people don't like to hear, but hunter behavior. Yeah. We lose a pot full of private access because of hunter behavior. Yeah. So there's all kinds of reasons. And so I think without access, it's hard to connect people to the cause of conservation without them having access to a place to go and have the hands-on experience of what conservation can do for hunting. So for me, that first step is access. After that, it's putting more animals, more productive landscapes are going to provide more animals. And people are like, well, what's that mean? Well, it means prescribed burns. It means weed control. It means, water catchments. It's a a big bundle of things, and it can be many things. It is advocacy. It's showing up when they're talking about doing a controlled burn, and someone with money shows up and says, well, I don't like smoke in the air. Well, guess what? There's no forage for the wild things if we don't do a controlled burn. Or, I could give you oodles of examples. But for me, those are the two. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing the creeping of this. And this is what we focused on in this 4-part series. We're seeing the creeping of this political process that has looked at the sleepy, all is well community in the hunting space and the wildlife space, how our commissions are. Did we ever expect that commissioners would be selected based on their political affiliation or their ideological, borderline religious belief about the use of wild things? No, we just assume no good people will be there and they'll do the right thing. That is not what has happened with the way the commission appointments have happened in Washington and Colorado. So and when you peel back the layers to see where that money's coming from and who's involved, this is not going away. Mm-hmm. They're going to put their foot on the gas, right? Mm-hmm. What do we have in Colorado now? A new ballot initiative that gets rid of anything related to wild felines, mountain lions, bobcats, anything. This stuff is not going away. And at that point in time, are the Colorado guys going to say, look, you non-residents, we don't want your money. Don't send us any money. Don't provide any advocacy for our cause. We don't need you. No.
No, they're going to be sending up the SOS signals saying, please help.
So I think that's emerged further than most hunters give it credit for. And I'll admit that until I started researching it 2 years ago, when I sat in and watched the Washington spring bear. Did you watch that, Brady?
It was so
biologist?
Oh, yeah.
It was an unbelievable presentation by the biologist of why they should have a spring bear season. I'm like... Nobody could vote against this. They voted to not renew it.
Yep.
And I'm like, that was scary. My moment where I said, I got to start looking into this. And I think that those are probably the three things that I see that we got to keep our eye on it. And we got to do more than what we've done. Buying a hunting license is not conservation.
It's not enough.
That's like saying that hunter ed is somehow your own personal investment in becoming a better hunter. No, it's a statutory requirement. Mm-hmm. A license is a statutory requirement. Yeah. Don't confuse volunteerism and advocacy and contributions with a statutory requirement. And we got to just do more and more and more. And, for me, I think if there's one place where we could see more, like I saw you guys did the giving thing in December. One day you guys gave all your money to those 4 groups. I think those are the kind of leadership things we need more of among people who have platforms like me. We need to be at meetings. We need to be commenting. We need to be doing the things that carry the ball. Because there's a lot of people who do what I do, myself included, who get a ton of personal... you can call it enjoyment, you can call it satisfaction, you can call it whatever. Purpose to my life because of hunting. And I damn sure need to give back more than I get out of it. And I hope people who have platforms to do that are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good... I don't know if it's a good spot to it's just food for thought. It's like I don't know. I think about it too, and it's so much. It's so hard to know what to do and when, and it feels like I never know quite what to do or what is it. But as I listen to you talk, there are so many things. Even if it's just a comment, if it's
public comment,
yeah, public comment. It's listening and just being educated on it, and then just trying to advocate where I can.
Yeah. I was so green when I started this process of advocating. How I got into it is in 1993, I just moved to Bozeman, Montana. My wife and I took these ridiculous pay cuts. Unlike today, everyone was leaving Bozeman at that time. You know, the U-Haul guy was glad I brought a trailer back because he was
needed
empty
it.
with everyone else had left town. And I was like, why the hell are you moving to Bozeman? I mean, we took ridiculous pay cuts, but I could get an elk tag every year that I couldn't get when I lived in Carson City, Nevada. I didn't have to get drawn from it. It's like, this is worth it for me. What my wife and I made is a financial sacrifice to have hunting available was, as a financial person in the CPA world, don't take advice from me. Don't, you know, if you'd analyze that and say, I'm not taking advice from that guy. Well, anyhow, we're there for 2 years, and there's this checkerboard piece of land, huge amount of land that had been railroad grants granted to the Northern Pacific Railroad, which later on, you know, however many, 80 years later, they split it into a timber company, land company, away from the railroad company. So now the land timber company has all this checkerboard stuff. The entire Gallatin and Madison face from Bozeman to Big Sky is all checkerboard. But the land company at that time's like, yeah, you can hunt it. You know, it was open. Along comes some guys, form a company called Big Sky Lumber. And they said, next year we're closing all of this. So all the trails that went through there that we not only could we hunt it, but the trails went through there. Over 100,000 acres of the best elk and deer hunting in Southwest Montana was going to get shut down. And my wife is reading this in the paper, and she's like, don't we hunt there? I'm like, yeah, this is a big deal. I don't know what to do about it. She says, well, there's a hearing at the Holiday Inn on North 7th. I want you to go there and tell them what I'm thinking.
Perfect.
I'll stay here with the kid. You go there.
Go.
So I remember sitting there, and I didn't know what to do. And this is the story to your point of what do you do? I'm so green. I have no idea. I'm sitting there in the back trying to be the quiet, polite accountant, and all these people are getting up, well, you know, this, that, and everyone's got their own cause, and there's not a single hunter there that has said anything. And Senator Max Baucus and his staff are there. They're the ones who held this public meeting. And I'm like, well, hell with it. I'm going to stand up and tell them what my wife thinks. And I don't even really remember what I said because I was so nervous. And I felt like, who am I to be talking to a U.S. senator? And then now, in retrospect, the guy Kurt Alt, who retired from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, he tells the story that I threatened to get the senator unelected. And I don't remember saying that. But anyhow, afterwards, the senator comes up to me with his chief of staff and hands me their cards. They're like, finally, you hunters showed up. Stay in touch with us. And so I didn't know really what to do. I just did what it was coming from my passion and my heart of, hey folks, I took a $30,000 pay cut for my resident elk tag. I don't want to see this happen. So over the course of the next 10 years, we worked on 3 land exchanges that now all of that is public access. The public ended up with over 100,000 acres of public access over that. And I learned a ton in the process. I made a lot of stupid mistakes. I said some stupid things, but I learned how the process worked. And I watched the people who really knew how it worked. I learned a lot from them. And then that got me involved in all kinds of other stuff. And so it starts with that first step. And don't worry if you say something, you know, always be polite and be professional. But
don't threaten to get a
don't
senator
be afraid to
unelected.
fail. You know, and nobody had it figured out. No one has it figured out yet. But do something. Your passion and your feelings about it and its importance to you will come through. And that will mean more to these decision makers, most of them, than the paid slick lobbyist who shows up because they know that person's on someone's payroll.
Yeah.
But here you show up as a volunteer, you took an evening away from your family, you drove 100 miles in a snowstorm. That means a lot. Or you wrote a letter, or you made a phone call, or you did whatever. Start with something and it will make a difference. And I wish there was a book on it, but I don't think there is. It just, you know, being involved is what it takes. And the decision to be apathetic about it and walk away because you don't know what to do, well, indecision becomes a decision. And we need more more deciders, more activists. So
That was good. That was well stated. I think I've said before on the podcast, and a lot of these decisions, if they go to a vote, if they are considered across the population statewide, those decisions are going to be made by the majority of people don't hunt. We know that.
mm-hmm.
So anything that you can do to, shine favor on hunting in a good light, I mean, you can show up, even if that's an influence to somebody that doesn't hunt, just shed a light on it, educate people. I think you can do things like that. You can talk to people that don't hunt.
Yeah.
Help them understand why you do hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a whole bunch of neighbors that, don't hunt, and they see, I'm packing meat in and out of my house, and I got a deer head on the back porch, but anything that you can do to help people understand, I think is good. I think it's a great, because I think so often we get a paralysis by analysis. We don't know what to do, and we just sit on our hands. So I think that's great advice to just start with one thing. What can you do?
Yeah.
Even if it's a small thing.
Yep.
So that's good.
Yeah.
You guys got other questions?
I don't.
That was a good discussion. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thanks for
That was
having
good.
me. I don't know that we've solved any of the world's problems, but
No, but I liked it. One thing I felt like, I don't know, every once in a while you get somebody through and you just feel like the genuine passion. And I genuinely believe that you're very passionate about the thing that you're trying to do.
yeah.
And I mean, it's just a compliment to you. So.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And I appreciate what you guys do. You guys are in that hard spot like a lot of people who have businesses in this industry. If you do a lot of stuff for conservation, you try to do it kind of quietly, because otherwise everyone's going to accuse you of, you're just doing it for a marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Catch-22.
I've been really worried about, and probably to the point of wrongly making decisions, and I'll fully admit to that. But you don't ever want to be labeled as a company that's just slapping your name on everything and all this stuff because you want the marketing equity from it or whatever it is. And so we try to do as much as we can, but we don't ever want to amplify what we just did, because then it's like, okay, well, why'd you do it then?
Right.
It's like if you're ever going to give back to the community and then you just go tell everybody, hey, I just gave, whatever for Christmas or underprivileged kids. Okay, well, why'd you do it then? Or did you do it to tell me? So anyways, we keep it under wraps, and we probably should be a little different about that.
and my job, I always feel no matter what company I'm with, if I know they do a lot for conservation, I try to throw that one out there, because I know how that fine line is. I mean, some of the partners we work with are like, no, we just do it because we want to give back to what we love and what our passion is. And so I know when I walk in here, there's no shortage of passion for the same things that I've expressed. Mm-hmm. I've just had the benefit of having to, I guess, being put on the spotlight to try express it in ways that are meaningful to me. And, you opened this by talking about you having 3 kids who are going to hunt. And I will say that when my son was born, it was like a 180 of how I viewed the world. Mm-hmm. The future of everything, the future of the country he's going to live in, the times he's going to live in. But the thing in my family, going back as far as I can remember, where the bonds of relationships were woven, was hunting. Just like when Brady talks so eloquently about his family's bond in hunting. For me, if hunting did not exist for my son, and then that generation and the next generation, that's where my passion comes from. That's what drives me, because somebody did that for me. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that's, short of my family and friends, there's nothing that's added more value to my life than hunting. The failures, the successes, the learning and the mistakes and all of that. Put it all in one package. And there's a reason my business card doesn't say Randy Newberg CPA. It says Randy Newberg Hunter, because that's what I identify as a hunter. And so that's where that comes from. And I think a lot of your listeners, a lot of my listeners and viewers feel the same way. So how do we put that in a way that makes it so my son, your kids, those next generations, how do they have what we had?
Got to keep at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Show up. That's probably a good spot to stop. You guys, any other questions for you guys? We appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks for having me.
Great conversations.
Yeah. So I guess follow you on YouTube.
Yeah.
Follow you on YouTube. Check out what you got going on, and then also your website. You got Hunt Talk.
Yeah, you got the Hunt Talk forum. We got the Hunt Talk radio podcast. Corey and I do the Elk Talk podcast. We got the YouTube channel Fresh Tracks with Randy Newberg. We have if you don't like ads and you don't want to be throttled and monitored and followed around the internet, we have a subscription platform called Fresh Tracks Plus. That's out at Fresh Tracks TV. All the normal stuff. I do have an Instagram page. I know that because the guys tell me.
Does Michael run that for you?
Michael and Kyler and Jace and Marcus and Matthew run the Instagram page.
There you go.
So if you get, what is it, a DM? A
DM,
direct
on
message.
Instagram? So many people are like, you must not run your Instagram page, because I got a message that says, if you want to reach Randy, email is best. Here's his email. But we do have that also.
There you go. We appreciate you coming out on what was probably a long weekend there at the elk camp. So we appreciate you stopping in.
Worth every bit of it.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Randy.